Go ahead.
Speaking of, last time a rookie quarterback was on Hard Knocks, it was the Big Show in Cleveland. Well, now we've got another one. Guess what it is?
It worked out all right.
Did it, though?
Yeah.
They got
that year?
Baker
Yeah.
was out there.
I know, but everybody said Baker was overexposed and ended up leaving.
Oh, in that part.
Anyway, now Caleb is going to be on Hard Knocks. Danny, you are our resident Chicago expert. Do you think this is good for Caleb or bad for Caleb? And Nick has the Bears going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I heard about that. I heard about that.
Yeah.
I see no argument that it is bad for Caleb Williams. I mean, Hard Knocks had a 13-year viewership high last year. Very successful season. 4.5 million people, roughly, per episode. This guy played in Hollywood. Week 2, Sunday Night Football. He's going to be playing in front of 20 million people. What, he's afraid of cameras and microphones? Like, he was built in a lab for the spotlight. He has Denzel Washington's cell phone number. Like, this guy is not going to be intimidated by cameras and microphones and, like, a Hard Knocks, like, Sports Illustrated cover jinx or something like that. Since 2009, 11 teams won more games after being on Hard Knocks. 2 won fewer, 2 won the same. Like, there's no adverse, negative impact on being on the show. Now, I'm not saying there won't be weird things for the Bears, because they can be a little bit of a weird franchise. Their owner rides a scooter, and their coach has acronyms.
Whoa.
And just saying, it's a little weird for a billionaire to ride a scooter. It's a little strange. Well, look, their offensive coordinator is kind of a different guy, but for Caleb, he's going to be fine.
Of the 21 teams that have been on Hard Knocks, only 7 made the playoffs. Now, you could say, well, that's the level of the teams, but still, only 1 has gotten to the conference finals, the Jets in 2010. So that's who you're latching your wagon to.
Nick. Well, okay, I don't
But
think,
here,
go ahead, sorry.
Look, I don't think it's good for any team. And because it's not good for the Bears, I don't think it's good for Caleb. I don't think it's an unnatural environment when you got cameras around all the time. It just is. Some players will play to it because they want to show off or they want to build a brand or whatever. Some players will shy away from it, not be themselves. I wouldn't want cameras running around here all the time.
We literally do.
We do have some. But still, it's not all that's like. I can't see how any coach would want this.
Well, that okay.
The question's about
And
Caleb.
because
Yeah.
but if it's not good for the Bears, it's not good for
Oh,
Caleb.
so I disagree.
I think it's terrible for these teams.
So do you think that there are players on the team that like it? That like the
Yes.
exposure? Okay, then
but
that's
that
why,
doesn't mean it's good.
No, but that's why it's good.
Because some people want to show off.
Right, but that's why it's good for Caleb. Because part of Caleb's slight curb he's going to have to get over is some guys in that locker room were Justin Fields guys. But now, before the season even starts, they are benefiting from being on Caleb Williams' team. Because they are now going to be more famous. They are now going to have a higher Q rating. They are now going to potentially, locally or nationally, be eligible for more endorsements and be more of an it team, which players like, which allows him to more immediately be the leader of the team. Also, Caleb, one of the benefits of...
I just want to say real fast, those players aren't going to be thanking Caleb for that, okay? Like, somebody has to be on Hard Knocks. Did they thank Jared Goff for why the Hard Knocks went to them? Like, no. Was it Dak Prescott that got Hard Knocks to Dallas? No. Like, I understand what Nick is trying to say, but if you think one of those players who was a Justin Fields guy, who's like not too happy about Caleb being there, and now they're on Hard Knocks, he's like, well, good golly, thank you so much, Caleb. Boy, I really miss Justin, and I really think that he's the guy, but now that you got me on Hard Knocks, well, yippee-doo-dah. Like, that's the dumbest argument I've ever heard, quite honestly. You can make an argument that it's good. That's just not the argument.
NIL, in my opinion, is you get an idea of, okay, what's this guy going to act like when he's rich and famous before you draft him?
Mm-hmm.
Caleb has been rich and famous for the last few years. He's living in a penthouse in Los Angeles. He is used to these things. He is used to, as Danny said, Hollywood, and I think this is going to be something where the only person I think it's going to be bad for is me and my Bears Super Bowl pick, because that's not going to be as trendy anymore, because a lot of people are going to be on it. Because I think that you're going to see that this team, people are going to realize, oh, wait, this wasn't some awful team last year. That's not how they got Caleb. which I know we talked about. I think that the average fan doesn't realize they won 7 games, and that this team is going to be good and exciting, and Caleb's a charismatic guy. I don't know why it would. The only people to me it's ever been bad for are coaches that look bad. But not every coach has looked bad on Hard Knocks.
It's also pretty sanitized now. I mean, it is an NFL production. Teams do have a say in what comes out. When's the last big scandal from Hard Knocks?
It doesn't have to be a scandal. There's a reason some things are on the record and some things are off the record.
But this
because
is all
people
off the
act
record.
naturally off the record. And I'm saying when you got cameras around all the time, I don't think it's good for teams. Caleb, I agree with what you guys said. He's used to it. He'll be fine. But for a team, it's as great for business. I don't think it's great for you football-wise.
If he throws awesome touchdowns and he's running around doing his awesome Caleb stuff, yes, it will look great. But we have also made full-on stories about Aaron Rodgers, hobbling around.
Yeah.
Tua threw 1 duck last year in training camp. Like, is he the guy? He just overthrew Tyreek Hill on a random social media video. We will do that. So if there's something, imperfect, which is going to be because he's never played an NFL football game.
Well, hold on.
That's going to be magnified.
So,
the highlights will be magnified. I get it. The errors will be magnified.
Right. So hold on. So I don't totally understand that line of reasoning though, because if what you're saying is if he's good, it's going to be magnified, and if he's bad, it's going to be magnified. Well, I'm betting he's going to be awesome.
I'm not saying bad. I'm not saying it's not a binary choice. I'm saying his hiccups in his development towards a superstar quarterback will be magnified, which he will step into.
We will know more about him.
It's already happened with the reports that he struggled in, OTAs.
Had a great OTA
become
today,
a big
though.
deal.
Yeah. Well,
Great OTA today.
Okay, Josh.
Okay, that's the end of the clip. I don't understand how Nick can be confused about this. Now, listen, let me first say that I'm a big fan of the Chicago Bears and what they're doing, and I think that they're going to have great success. And so I'm going to unpack this from a few different sides, and I think I'm actually very well qualified for this because I've actually been interviewed a lot of times. I was originally cast. It didn't all go down, but I was actually going to be on a reality show with MTV. So, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have all these cameras around me. I've been interviewed, all this type of stuff. And I have a pretty good sense of what that experience actually is like. And here's the thing, to kind of work backwards a little bit, what Brew is saying and Wilds right now is really accurate. We have so many examples of this where it's all they need is to have one tiny little awkward moment between Caleb and someone else. And they're like, the whole story is Caleb a good leader? Does the locker room really care about Caleb? They just magnify everything. There was literally the video of Aaron Rodgers looking at his foot, and it became a whole story on all the networks, right? That's the magnification that you're getting when on Hard Knocks, both good and bad. And Nick is confused because no one's saying that it's just going to be 100% good or 100% bad. They're just saying that any tiny little negative thing, anything. I remember for when Dallas was on Hard Knocks, everybody was just ripping Mike McCarthy apart, right? Because he had the groovy moment or the mojo moment or whatever. And he wanted everyone to get their mojo, and everybody just made fun of him and blasted him for it, right? They just blasted him for it. It was just, he got no respect. And we saw everything that happened they were in Oakland, I believe at the time. I think it was before they went, the Raiders. Everything that happened with AB, the whole salmon versus Salmon, which I think was also the Raiders. Little dumb things just all get magnified. They just do. That's just the reality. But that's just a general sense that every single team faces. But now the focus on Caleb. Listen, I think it could be both good and bad for Caleb for multiple reasons. To be very clear, I don't think this is the thing that will bring down the Chicago Bears or it's going to be some sort of jinx or this or that. But this whole idea that since he knows what it's like to be rich and famous, that's not accurate because he doesn't know what it's like to face in the NFL. College is not the NFL. Living in LA and in a penthouse or whatever is not the same thing as starting on Sundays for the Chicago Bears, where now all the expectations are truly through the roof. It's just different. There's just different levels to this. And I think Caleb Williams can handle it. To be very clear, I believe Caleb can handle it, but you can't use the NIL and the past of what's going on in college as a reference point for that. Because there's different levels even in the NFL. Watch players when they talk about what was it like. I think it was Mark Sanchez gave a great interview about this where he said it was so interesting. You make it to the playoffs and you're like, at first when you get interviewed, when you're at the press conference, you're like, whoa, like the room got bigger. There's a lot more people here now. Like, whoa, this is crazy. And then you make it past that round, you go to the next round and it gets even bigger. And you're just like, whoa, like it keeps getting bigger. And then the next round and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you get kind of like shell shocked. And this is someone who's in the NFL. And so and this is someone who played big time in college football as well. So it's just always a unique experience. You're never prepared for the NFL until you're in the NFL. You're never prepared to be in the playoffs until you're actually in the playoffs. You're never prepared to actually be in the Super Bowl unless you're in the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter that you've already had great experiences or if you balled out in a national championship game. It doesn't matter because it's not the actual thing at hand. It's not the actual NFL. It's not the actual Super Bowl. One of the things that Super Bowl people that I played in the Super Bowl talk about is that you don't realize that the timeouts are so much longer. And it takes you a second to kind of like get adjusted to it. And that's why it's better that when you actually have that experience, you know that going into another Super Bowl. Experience matters. So this is just something that is going to be magnified. While Caleb is trying to figure out the NFL, he's also now going to have these cameras in his face. And now what Danny Perkins, whatever the heck his name is, I don't know. What he said about the whole ratings, it doesn't matter. 500 people could be watching Hard Knocks. It doesn't matter. It's just this phenomenon that when you have people interviewing you, when you have cameras in front of you, when you have someone asking you questions, sitting in a chair, like asking you the questions like they do in it's like the confessional style interviews, your demeanor changes, your energy changes, everything about you changes, even if no one's watching it. I've been in commercials that I'm pretty sure we're not having hundreds of millions of people seeing it, but still everything changes. And even though you've played football in front of millions upon millions upon millions upon people, that's different. That is your expertise. That is what you were born and bred to do, to ball out, to play quarterback. That's different. So it doesn't matter. He knows how to do that. He's comfortable doing that. Doing the interviews, being judged in your personality, talking while you're in your apartment or your house or wherever they're going to be, in the locker room, I don't think they're ever in the locker room, but wherever they are, it's just different. Why, they're sitting in the car with them while they're driving. It's just, all I'm going to keep saying again and again is it's just different. And one of the things is, and so this is how it could be both good and bad. You see this a lot of times. So let's say you're being interviewed or you're talking, right? You're always on, from the most part, your best behavior. You're on your funniest behavior, your most charismatic and your charming behavior. But you're also now on your best behavior in the sense of hardworking. You are going to put in that extra effort. You are going to do what you need to do, which again can be both good and bad. And the way how I think about it is like this. We hear all these great quotes all the time, right? Like, fear nothing but fear itself, right? And when we see someone say that, right, let's say they ask, Caleb, do you fear anything? And Caleb says, I don't fear anything. Every single day, I just wake up and just know that I have the confidence and I fear nothing. The only thing that I fear is fear itself, right? And it's like, you can take that and be like, whoa, that's so cool. He doesn't fear anything. That's not human. Everybody fears something. Those lines, those quotes sound great. Never take no for an answer. It all sounds great. And when you're saying it in front of a camera, it all sounds great, but it's not actually reality. Tom Brady doubted himself. Patrick Mahomes doubted himself. They all have fears. They all have anxieties. They have all cried like little babies to their parents, to their girlfriends, to their wives. They've all had the lowest of all lows. And so now why am I saying this? Because in front of the camera, you try to be this perfect person. You try to present this perfect persona, which now you try to live up to. You know how hard it is to live up to this idea of fear nothing but fear itself? It's not possible. It's not sustainable. So on one side, you can be in your best behavior in terms in a positive way because he's going to try to apply that. Let's say he says the quote, and again, this is a made up quote, obviously, fear nothing. He's going to tell himself, fear nothing, fear nothing. And it's going to help him kind of motivate him and push him and keep going forward. But on the other side, it can also work reverse, where if things aren't going so good, and you're like, fear nothing, fear nothing, fear nothing, but he can also sense the fear is coming all over him. It's called cognitive dissonance. It's a disconnect. It's what I'm trying to express who I am versus who I actually am. And you get this dueling experience. And again, I've experienced this personally because I've been interviewed one time I was in a whole commercial campaign for Champion, the fitness brand Champion. And I was in Denver actually working out in like this big, massive, like hangar, right? Like literally like an airplane hangar that was like turned into a CrossFit gym. Really cool. And right, I'm being interviewed, having all these things, and I also have to work out and do all this like inspiring type stuff. And I'm doing those things, and I mean, I was exhausted. I was gassed. Under any other circumstance, I would have been like, bro, like I need a break. But you have like 100 people all around you, all the cameras, a smoke machine, like all this type of stuff. And you just keep going. Like I overextended myself. And when they're asking you like, how do you feel? What about this? What about that? I feel great. I'm just so motivated and ready. And this clothing, by the way, also feels great too. Like, God, as long as I'm wearing Champion, I can do anything, right? Like everything is just so enhanced and exaggerated. And that was just for like a couple days, honestly. Like this is now going to be weeks. So I just think that, again, it's not like it's going to bring him down. It's just one extra thing that you have to think about. It's one extra thing. You're now watching your coach, and now your coach, maybe your coach wants to yell at you, right? Maybe that's the appropriate reaction. The coach is yelling at you and saying, like, what are you doing? That's the wrong read. What are you doing? In that moment, you already feel dumb, especially if you're a rookie. You already feel insecure, like, oh my God, right? And now you're like kind of thinking the other players are watching me. The other rookies are watching me. The seasoned veterans are watching me. And now you're like, man, and now Hard Knocks is watching me. Is that going to be on TV? People going to talk about that? Like it just gets added onto it, right? Like it just gets added. We have something called the stereotype effect, where if you're part of a group where you're often stereotyped, let's say you're part of a group where they don't think you know how to tie your shoes, right? Like you can tie your shoes all day, every day. You're great. But if someone's watching you, you start to fumble over tying your shoes. And it's not because you're choking or you're nervous or anxious in that kind of way. It's because you sense that people are expecting you to not be able to tie your shoes. So it kind of almost becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy where you now struggle to tie your shoes, right? And like you see this a lot with different races and different cultures and different disabilities and whatnot. And so it's just a thing. And so you'll start to experience that when you just have extra eyes and cameras. Even if it was the Chicago Bears cameras, right? Even if they're just like, hey, we're just filming you just for fun and we're going to like maybe post on social media. Actually, the owner just wants to see it. No one else. We're just going to play it for the owner's family. Just kind of fun. Hey, he's mega rich and just does what he wants. And, you know, we're just going to treat it like it's a fun reality show. But like no one's ever going to see it. Your behavior is still going to change. So that's why the views and how many people are watching it, it just doesn't matter. It really doesn't. But please don't take this as me saying that I think that this is going to cause such issues, that Caleb isn't going to be able to thrive in this and he's going to fail and the Chicago Bears are going to fail, because that's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that it will change the experience. It can't not. It can work to his benefit. Maybe he thrives under these conditions. Maybe he loves it and lives for it, because some people do. But other people also can get distracted. Like Brew was saying, some people want it and it's going to build their brand. And it's true. And that's what Nick was saying too. Oh, it'll be good for them because now they'll be able to get other deals and this, that. It's just more distractions. Ask Nick Wright if he wants Kansas City Chiefs under Hard Knocks, because I know for a fact he does not, right? Like nobody, you don't actually want that. If you actually have a chance to win, you don't want to deal with that. I'm excited for Hard Knocks because I actually like the show Hard Knocks, and I think it's pretty cool. You get to know the players a little bit more intimately. You get to meet their family, their mothers, their sisters, their brothers. Like you just get this, you get to learn more about them. It's how I started to actually really like the Detroit Lions more, and some of these other teams in Carr. And why I've started to really not like AB, and you learn a lot of stuff. It's why I like Dak, honestly. I'm like, oh, Dak seems a pretty cool guy. So you get some interesting stories and some interesting things. But I just do think that it is unfortunate. It's good TV. It's going to make great TV. And I think you are going to get even more eyes on this. You'll probably get higher ratings than you have in the past. But yeah, I wouldn't say that it's good or bad. To answer the question directly, is it good or bad for Caleb? I wouldn't say that it's good or bad, just that it can be both good and bad. And it most likely will be both. That's just the reality. But that would be like that for every single team, every single player, every single coach, every single front office. It's good and bad. Nothing in life is just yes or no in that regard like that. So it's just, if it's good or bad for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, then it's going to be good and bad for Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. But, and again, also Caleb Williams may be able to handle it, but who's to say about Eberflus? Who's to say about some of these other guys? Because you see a lot of coaches get weird. They really start to throw out those inspiring quotes again and again and again, and you're like, all right, I get it. I mean, all locker rooms always have those quotes, but everything just seems to have the volume turned up. And quite frankly, if you're the Chicago Bears, I think you want the volume turned down, right? You want everything to be calm, cool, and collected and chill, right? You want everything to be as easy as possible. And I just think Hard Knocks pumps up the volume a little bit. But fortunately, it's more in the beginning of the season and not mid-season, which I think is in a lot of ways actually better. Because I think they should be able to get off to a decent start. I don't know if they're going to rip off this 8-0 start like some people are talking about, but I think because I think how many games I'm not really sure, but I think when it's do they even get to a first regular season game? I forget, because I think a bunch of them are preseason games, but I don't know when they officially start doing it. So it's not the worst thing. I think the in-season Hard Knocks would have been a lot tougher for Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears, but this one's I think is going to be a little bit easier. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think this will be good or bad for Caleb or anyone else for the Chicago Bears? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.